What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the J-Team Brand Podcast. It's your host here, Josh Pizarro, and I have two special guests with me today. I have my boy Lincoln Wettenhall and George Pastor from the Lincoln Wettenhall Team at Douglas Elliman. And, I decided to bring these guys on board, man, because I want to hear about y'all hustle and how you guys got, to where you are in Douglas Elliman, man. So, let you introduce yourselves to our audience and start from there, man.
All right. My name's Lincoln Wettenhall. I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up actually a couple blocks away from where we're taping and recording this right now. I'm a licensed real estate broker with Douglas Elliman, and George and I have a small team that we run together out of the 1995 Broadway office, as well as the 2112 Frederick Douglass Boulevard office as well.
All right, nice, man. George, man, what's up with you? You got a little introduction for yourself.
I am George Pastor. I'm a co-founder of the Wettenhall Team with Lincoln here at Douglas Elliman. I am also an associate broker, and I jumped into Douglas Elliman straight out of college. We started out of the Tribeca office, collaborating on some real estate transactions, and then we...
So what's your history in real estate? Did you start immediately? Was it something that you wanted to get into? Because I know we spoke on the backdrop, and I know that your dad is obviously an owner in Queens, and that kind of story. So I went to school for international management. I happened to intern during the summers for a developer, and that kind of influenced me getting into the brokerage side. I worked with Two Trees for a little bit, interning for them as assistant to a project manager. So I got to learn about subcontracting and bidding and stuff like that. Oh, nice.
And yeah, they're doing really cool stuff. And then my first exposure, I guess, to real estate would be following my dad around some properties that he had invested in, and helping them, maintain them, and learning how.
Early on.
Yeah.
What was your choice for you, Link? How did you get into real estate?
So it's a little bit different for me. I kind of grew up where in the West Village, where there was a lot of change going on when I was growing up.
New York City in general, man.
Yeah, wow. In general, but my neighborhood in particular, I saw pretty drastic change, and just started to see correlation between things. And I'd always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. And when I kind of got back from school, I decided, to take a shake at the real estate thing. Yeah. I'd always been interested in architecture, but I never had any sort of focus or anything to be an architect. Yeah. But sales and running your own business and the entrepreneurial aspects of real estate really interested me. So
was it straight out of high school for you or college?
It was out of college. So I'd been going to school, and I actually dropped out of college. And
same here. Don't worry about it. College dropouts happily.
But then I got involved in real estate, and it's been pretty good momentum since then. George and I linked up in about my second year, or I think your second or first year for you. And we were initially working out of the Tribeca office.
Did you guys meet at Douglas Elliman, or did you guys know each other beforehand?
No, so that's kind of the cool thing. We're total just native New Yorkers from different parts.
Yeah, we were both hired by the same manager.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And Lincoln, I think, had about just under 2 years under his belt when I joined, and about maybe 4 to 6 months in at my point, we started collaborating on some one-off deals, and as our relationship, grew, we realized that we had pretty similar backgrounds, and
that's that native New York hustle.
And it was something symbiotic about us. We're both only children. We're both come from first generation, born here from immigrants.
Nice.
So we saw our parents work hard. And
what's your background?
Bootstrap themselves up. My parents are from Ecuador, and my mother's father was from Portugal. So mostly Latin America.
Nice. And what's your background? What's your parents' background?
So my father's from Melbourne in Australia. Then my mom's from Kampala in Uganda. So really kind of only a New York sort of thing. But I want to highlight, what George said. For me, I grew up watching. My father's a musician, and my mom owns a store. So I watched them kind of grind, and I watched them go through their aspects of, running a business, and that was definitely something that was really influential to me as well. Into getting into business was just watching them, and how they, kind of, worked with the city and everything, and how it's such a great environment, I guess, for that sort of.
Nice. So your mom and your dad pretty much had a nice little molding when it came to the entrepreneurial mindset.
I guess in a way, but it's a very much a creative, and two creatives versus I think the more the financial entrepreneur. So it's a different way of looking at things, and the way I turned out, I suppose I'm not like a creative as much as them in that respect, but much more, I guess, in the real estate and financial aspect. I like finding creative ways for people to maximize their investment.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you spoke about Two Trees. How was your time there? So, like, how much of, I guess, that network did you bring into real estate? Because, I mean, Two Trees is a huge real estate company.
I wouldn't say that I've really used them as network as much as it was just a learning opportunity for me. I had the chance to
That's a great learning opportunity.
Intern, they were developing something in Hell's Kitchen, and I happened to intern as an assistant to one of the project managers. So I got to learn how they did project planning from when they were doing the foundation work, and then the following summer, they were already kind of in the superstructure and starting to put the curtain wall up. So I learned how they sort of did the scheduling for construction and how it went into multiple phases, and at every phase they were always obviously allowing contractors to submit bids to do the work, and then I would put together kind of an Excel sheet for them to kind of review where the prices were, what I thought the output would be, because sometimes some contractors are very large and they can take on the project, and sometimes some of these guys are they're still growing, so they might be biting a little bit more than they can chew. And I got to see how they made that decision, because that was way above my pay grade. I was just kind of processing the information and giving them the information, and then they would execute on that. So it was cool learning from that. I got to walk around. And see how that stuff kind of happened. So it was just mostly a learning experience.
That's nice, man. And so Lincoln, I know you guys mentioned how many years you have with Elliman again together?
So I've been here about 8 years.
8 years. Now, what do you say is the next step for the Wettenhall team? Like, because obviously I see you guys. You guys brought me on.
Yeah.
You guys brought Jake on as well.
So. We're definitely, I think, in a mode where we're expanding. George and I, our combined time in the business now is pretty significant, and we've tenured ourselves, I suppose, in a lot of different types of projects, and we're getting, we started to get inquiries where we have a need, to have.
What are some of the projects you guys have worked on together?
We did the first modular building in New York City, which was the Stack. That was one of our first new developments that we advised on from basically all the specs in the build out as far as appliance mix, size of apartments, that sort of thing, and pricing out to the whole lease up. And then after that, we did 6 West 126th Street. We did 78 West 3rd Street over here in the Village. We did 267 Pacific Street in Boerum Hill. We've done a bunch. I'm probably missing some here, to be honest. But
on a townhouse in Harlem.
We're working on a townhouse right now in Harlem that will be kind of a boutique 2-unit thing. So,
where do you see you guys expanding your market into? Is it going to be like a resale? Is it more new development, or is it just like?
I think our business will always be a hybrid business.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mix. I would say
which is always good to have.
I would say that a significant chunk, if you want to talk about volume of transactions, we're prolific in rentals because they're just kind of quick and easy, and we tend to do
5% of New York City is rental. So
we tend to do landlord representation, and these bigger landlords have multiple units, so we just kind of come on as leasing directors and make sure that they get keep them occupied and as much rent as they can. But if we're talking about how it's spread out money-wise, obviously the rental stuff brings in less per transaction, but
What is the amount of quantity?
yeah, it's volume, and then our resale business has been all over the place. You know, we've done stuff from Financial District all the way up to Inwood, out in Williamsburg and Brooklyn. So, and we're selling right now something all the way out in the eastern border of Queens, just before it turns into Nassau County. So,
we like to put no cap on where we'll go. I think
we're native New Yorkers, so why not? Right?
I think also though, you know, we've had some experience in all over the city, and like you said, we're native New Yorkers, so why not, you know, go where everything is? And I think all our experience that we've pulled from all our other projects is always transferable or applicable to, you know, to our other listings or new listings. So I think for us, when we talk about like future direction and everything, I think, you know, we're going to continue to do what we do, but I think we're trying to bring on some scale and reach a lot further. And, you know, as opposed to it being just me and George, to having, you know, a larger scale team. But we want to, you know, still integrate and I guess have all the aspects of having like a boutique business.
Have a nice little home.
I mean, people come to us because, you know, they know they're going to get George or I on the phone.
Exactly.
And, you know, we're, you know, reputable.
Accessible, yeah.
We're really accessible. We're reputable business people, and you know we're both always in the city. Basically, you know we don't really vacation much. You know, there's one of us always here, literally.
Right.
Like always here though.
we plan it so that one of us is always here, so we can jump
Yeah,
in.
I mean,
And, I don't know about Lincoln, but you know, I'm pretty quick with emails and text messages, but if you call me, I usually pick up on the first or second ring.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I think I'm probably one of the persons that call you the most, but.
And I think it's important just for our peace of mind of our clients that they can reach us. And like Lincoln said, you know,
what do you guys feel like? Do you guys feel like it's an advantage of being a native New Yorker, and then obviously, you know, kind of being the guide for the city when it comes to real estate?
yes and no.
yeah.
So give us a yes. Give us the reason for no. Because obviously you have to have the experience. I agree.
Yeah. So I think, you know, the reason I would say no is people tend to think, you know, maybe that you're going to be cocky, or you know that you have
That's true.
you might have, you know, a chip on your shoulder. I don't know if that's really the right term, but like people might think, oh, this person's. I want to use a term. We're on a podcast, right? So I'm going to say you're kind of gassed up because you're a New Yorker.
And you curse. Don't worry about it. Fuck it.
No, but like I like seriously, like people will think that, and that can be a negative.
Yeah.
People will think you may
That's
have
so
not
true.
hustled as much as other people, that sort of thing, and that does count for something here. So that's a no. I would say it really counts for a minority. Generally, people are more, you know, into it, but I do want to point out there are negatives to it also.
I agree.
Yeah.
Preconceived notions of New York City is definitely one.
Yeah.
What about for you?
Preconceived notions of like New Yorkers.
In general, just overall in New York, because dude, there's times that we're fighting like, you know, hey, you know, this neighborhood isn't as bad as people would conceive or perceive it to be. So. What about you? Like,
I wouldn't say that I don't think that there's any no's. I don't think there's anything necessarily negative besides anybody who's coming in with some sort of prejudice against, you know, yeah. Because if anything, I think it's the reverse. You know, we've been here, you know, I'm almost 30 years old. Lincoln's 30 years old. We've seen neighborhoods change. Like I went to high school right near here. Yeah. We've seen buildings go up. So
we talk about this all the time.
One of our 36, so I know. Exactly. One of our core, I think, demographic of people that we represent are these owners or potential owners that are looking to buy in a place where they're going to see upside. And we've already kind of identified and seen the trends of how, you know, something goes from not being an it spot to being a place where, okay, now this is, you know, some real equity gains. You know, people are coming here, things are flying off the shelves. And if once the prices hit high numbers, you miss the boat. You got to get there before.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, it's like the stock market. You want to buy right now when the stuff is low and suppressed, even though logically you're a little bit nervous, because that's when it bounces back up, you're going to get that gain. If you're buying it at the top of the market, you know, your profit's going to be
much smaller.
A lot smaller, and you have the potential for the dip, where on the other side, it's, you know, you're starting at a lower tide, and, you know, high tide brings all the boats up.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I definitely agree with you on that, man.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on that. That's a big plus, is that we've seen how this construction in neighborhoods trend, and the little things that, I mean, just honestly, you're only going to get from people who've just been exposed to it constantly their whole life. You know, for me, I watched as, you know, the Richard Meier, you know, glass buildings went up on, you know, on the highway on West Street, and then, you know, I'm sure you saw changes by your high school, by Xavier, as Union Square, you know, got transformed, you know, into kind of, you know, much more inviting place than it was when we were growing up.
I agree.
The changes in the Lower East Side, and then also just the changes in one of our bigger areas that we do a lot of business in, which is in north of 96th Street.
Yeah,
you know,
Hudson Heights, right?
Yeah, the way that I would say Harlem, West
Harlem is
Washington Heights, which is divided between, you know, multiple areas, including Hudson Heights and Fort George, and even up to Inwood, and now some of the outpour going into the lower part of the Bronx. I think the way that what happens is that an area kind of, you know, hits that peak.
Yeah.
So the people who were the originators, the early adopters, if you will, kind of get priced out, and they go find a cool little niche area where they can still get good bang for the buck, or it's affordable in their price point. Once that sort of starts to happen, then comes the developers who see, okay, this is starting to gain some traction, and then after that, the developers complete and bring their projects online, and, you know, comes the kind of like the bulk, the middle people, and then at the very end comes kind of like the last one, you know?
All of this.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course. You know, it's like whenever a new phone comes out, there's going to be a little bit of bugs in the beginning. Then they fix it, and everyone buys it, and then there's that, you know, the grandma and grandpa that kind of get dragged to where it is. All right, yeah, you know, and ultimately in real estate, what happens is that place became from an undesirable or less desirable place to a place that is attractive because of value and affordability, to a place that is now a full-fledged like destination. Like, there's, you know, good retail, there's good restaurants, there's good bars, there's good nightlife, easy transportation, you know, because of, you know,
those are the instant goers to say, hey, this
exactly.
Yeah, no, I agree. While we're talking about native New Yorkers, I'm gonna take it completely away from real estate. Where do you guys stand with New York City teams as far as sports? Is anybody into sports, dude, or are we like kind of like sports inadequate over here?
I mean, I'll put it to you this way. Like, I was always a big Knicks fan.
I'm still a Knicks fan. Don't say always or was.
Yeah, and it's just it's tough times.
Oh man.
Yeah, so
tough times.
It's been tough times for a long time. So
dude, I'm a Knicks and a Jets fan. So trust me.
Me too. But I heard that we just got Le'Veon Bell. So
my man, I'm excited.
Yeah. So Knicks for me, Jets for me. Obviously, got to go with the Rangers.
have to go with the Rangers.
I'm a Yankees fan, even though I was born and raised in Queens. But that's because my father went to school at Pace, so that was the closest accessibility to him. So I followed him as a kid.
So is Dad a Yankees fan or a Mets?
Dad's a full Yankees fan, man.
No way.
From when he went
and
to.
He's from Queens too.
Yeah.
What, dude? I'm surprised you guys.
But you know what?
got kicked out of Queens.
I have sort of like a respect for both the Mets and now the Brooklyn, because the Barclays Center is dope and that whole little area is cool. So
shout out to my guy behind the scenes. He's a big Brooklyn Nets.
I'm gonna be at the Barclays Center because they're hosting the A10 tournament for college basketball, and that's where St. Joe's is part of the A10. So I got to see my alma mater play.
I'm a big New York across the board, but like I guess when you name Brooklyn, I'm not that I'm against them, but I always feel like, all right, that's the Knicks' little brother. Like, get the fuck out of here with that shit. That's not a real New York.
Their origins were in New Jersey, so you know.
Exactly. I think that's where it stems from. But at the same time, we did have the Brooklyn Dodgers before, so and the Yankees always existed. So, I mean, the city's always been divided.
Knicks 2020.
Please. Man. I will take that. I will fucking take that. But listen, guys, man, I don't know if you guys have anything that you want to leave the audience with, any future projects that the Lincoln Wettenhall team is going to be working on. You know, obviously, we have a lot of media going on, so, you know, you can kind of talk about that and, you know, just kind of leave them.
So, yeah, I'll leave it with, you know, everyone, thank you for having us on the podcast. Big shout out to the JTB podcast, Three Lens Media. They've been helping us out with our big media campaign. Also, I'd like to say follow us at Wettenhall Team NYC on all forms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, and it all. And then a big thank you to all the team members, Josh, Jake, and of course my partner, George.
Yes, God made it happen, man. Really quickly, before we go, do you want to leave a little drop about the podcast that you guys might are talking about, having, or is it still too early for that?
You know what? We have ordered the equipment. We should be dropping a podcast about real estate by real New Yorkers. I guess the only nugget that I would leave the viewers would be that anyone who's on the fence about purchasing, now is the time. Cash is cheap. When my parents refinanced their home in the early 2000s, the rates were like at 7 to 9%, and in the 90s, and in the 90s it was in the low teens. So, it's still historically low. Cash is cheap. Get in while you can.
Credit is king.
And then, besides that, welcome to the team, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you guys even bringing me on board. I've been learning a lot with you guys, and it also gives me a perspective of real estate that obviously I don't come in with. I'm only in my 4th year, or going into my 4th year, and hearing guys and watching you guys come up, native New Yorkers at that, that's how I always felt about real estate. When I was coming into real estate, I was like, hey, I'm a native New Yorker, I can make this happen. It's a hustle, but I can make this happen. And so watching you guys, it does give me a lot of inspiration, man. So I appreciate you guys definitely bringing me on board, for sure.
Worth it if you work it. Gotta put in your hours. They say it's flexible, but you put in more hours than not.
Exactly, man. But as usual, guys, thank you so much for listening to the JTB podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe, share, comment. I don't know. Anything else, man? We're good. Love you guys. Take care.